that's those pieces now painted, and that's the two coats, so the undercoat of white and then the Vancouver over the top. Same with the bits of wood on the back of the stairs. Remember, I put a piece on to hide the nails. And on the second set of stairs I put on the long piece, but also a piece along the banister rail. So I don't want to touch it at the moment because it's still wet, but from that side it's now quite thick. But what I think I'll do is at the top of the stairs I'll use a thicker newel post for the little safety rail, which can then stand in front of that, and then I'll do this same rope spindles again, and that then solves the problem of having a second rail stood in front of there, because I think it'll look a bit more intentional. But you'll sort of see what I mean when I fit it all in. I don't think I'm explaining it very well. So pleased now to have these bits done, and it's now 5:10, so I'll leave these to dry until the morning. I've got a few Etsy orders to pack in the morning, and then I'll come and get on, and then I can get the stairs fitted and then get the rest of the skirting and coving cut, and then we're there, we're ready to move in, and that feels really good to say. Okay, so I'll see you again probably tomorrow afternoon now. Bye. And I fitted the skirting into place, and on the little sort of landing bit here, it was trying to curl up, this sheet of wood was trying to curl up at the front, so I used this piece of skirting board here to push that down, so that's now straight. And again I'll have a little bit of filling to do. If you can see over in that far back corner there's a little bit of a gap sort of in the middle of the mitre join, and I'll have to sort out this front bit here. I'll probably put a bit of wood in because I think it just looks silly sort of having those overhanging, so I'll put a little bit of wood in there and I can colour it the same as this. And then you probably don't need to be warned because you're probably not as clumsy as me, but I'd knocked this light when I was sort of getting the skirting in, and it had actually come away from the ceiling, so I've just glued it back into place. I panicked at first because I thought somehow I'd done something perhaps up here and I'd tightened the wire and pulled it in, but it had just come away from the ceiling, so I've just used a bit of glue and stuck that back on. But do be careful when you're sort of moving about in the rooms not to knock your lights. Like I say, you probably won't. So what I want to do now is actually start fitting the stairs, and it seems a bit of a strange way of doing it, but what I'm actually going to do is glue this part of the stair into place, and then I'll get in there and apply glue to the edges of the stairs and then fit my banister rail. And it's just because I can't work out how to get the banister rail level, you know, when the stairs aren't in situ. So I've tried lining it up on my mat, but it just doesn't seem to work because it's not a solid structure. I can't get a sort of an exact measurement so that the rail will sit flush with the floor and with the landing once it's in place. So I'm going to glue this into place, and see how nicely that runs from that skirting board at the top there. That looks really nice, and then I've got a bit of skirting to go along here once the stairs are fitted as well. So I'll glue the stairs into place next, and then I'll come back and show you how they look, and then we'll fit the banister rail. And again, it's just because I can't get the camera in here to show you what I'm doing, so I'll just have to do it and then show you the results again. Okay, so I'll see you in a minute. So that's the first part of the stairs in place. I've just used a little bit of low tack masking tape there because that sort of top part kept sort of pinging away from the wall. So I haven't pressed it too hard down onto the paper, but just against that piece of skirting at the back to hold those two pieces together. And then I fitted this front piece of skirting as well. And just to say that before I glued the skirting into place, I dry fitted it. And after painting, you will find that you may need to either sand or even cut a little bit away to get it all to fit nicely back together. So always dry fit before you apply your glue. So I'll let those just dry off for a moment and then get rid of that tape, and then I can fit my banister rail. And then another thing I don't think I said to you when I did the upper rail is that because there are so many nails, I have more nails in this piece, the cord was just pulling them all out. So I sort of redid it 3 or 4 times, getting to the sort of really frustrated stage because the nails just wouldn't stay in. Every time I tried to wrap the cord, the nails were pulling out. So I've actually used a thread on this one, and I used this, it's actually crochet cotton or a fine wool. It's probably less than 1 ply. I'm not actually sure what it's called, but I did actually buy it for crocheting. One of those lovely big balls, but I've used that on the upper stairs, and you can't really tell, and certainly when the 2 pieces are in place you're not going to be able to tell that one's a slightly thicker cord. But I actually wish now I'd have used the thinner stuff on the first set of rails. Firstly, it wraps nicely around the nail heads, it fits in underneath them better, and it's easier to work with. And the other thing, which I'm hoping isn't going to notice, and I don't know if you can catch that there on camera, but where I'd pulled the cord a little bit too tightly as well to keep it firm, that top banister rail is curved in a little bit. But because of the angle that it's going to be sitting at, like that, and we're sort of looking at it from the front, it's not really going to be noticeable. But again, with the cotton or the wool, because it's a lot finer, it didn't pull. You don't need to pull it as tightly, it just falls into place, and therefore I didn't pull that top rail out of place. So if you're going to have a go at this sort of rope banister railing, then try and use something slightly thinner than the cord. And that was a waxed cord as well, so it's nice and tough for some projects, but it didn't work for this one. Okay, so next job then is to fit that lower rail. I'll pop that one up there because I've missed the paint underneath the bit of rail there, so I've got to paint that. And then I found a little bit of skirting that I'd missed. I'd left it sitting there, so I hadn't painted that either, so I'll do those as well while that's just drying off. Okay, so I'm going to start by applying a little bit of glue to the edge of each stair. And like I say, I know this is a bit of a awkward way of doing it, because you've got to sort of reach in now to this small area, but I just really wanted to be sure that I was getting the stairs at the right angle, and so that the sort of banister rail wasn't sitting up. So I put a little bit there on the edge of each one. Let me get rid of that. A little bit of glue there. And then have a think about where your rail touches, or where it's going to be touching, and then apply a little bit of glue to each of those areas. I'll start by getting it up there. And I know you can't sort of see in properly to see what I'm doing, but I'm just sort of feeling it into position, if you know what I mean. Make sure I'm pushing that right up to the top of the landing as well. So, looks pretty good actually. Let me see if I can bring you just round the front to show you what I'm looking at, what I'm looking in, sorry. So, the first and the second stair just looked a little bit out, so I just really gently moved them so that they were straight, and so that when you're looking in from the front, they look straight and even. I'm pretty sure they do. I think if there is any slight difference, it's so slight that it's not going to be noticeable unless you really were to sort of stand and study it. But I do quite like how they look. I'm glad I sort of had a go at the rope banisters, because I think it gives it a really different look. Okay, so I'm just sort of going to hold this into position for a bit, just to get it to stick to the side of those stairs, and then I'll do the same thing again with the top stairs. Actually, I don't think then I'm going to be able to get in and apply glue to the sides of the individual stairs, so I think I may have to try and find out a way of gluing it together before I glue it into place. I suppose I could sort of roughly position it and then make any small adjustments, but let me wait until this has dried off a bit, and then I'll have a play around with that and I'll come back to you. Oh my goodness, I've had a bit of a disaster with the second lot of stairs. So when I actually came to fit them into place, they didn't fit, they were too wide, and stupidly I just made the stair treads the same width as the ground floor stairs without even measuring how much space I had left on that left hand side. So I just had to remove each of the treads and resize them, and I cut them using my mitre block and saw, and where I've done that I've chipped some of the paint off from underneath, so I'll have to repaint that. And as you can see, well, I don't know if you can tell from here really, but they are going to be a lot narrower than the lower stairs, but without sort of dismantling the lower stairs, which would be a really big job now, there's nothing I can do about that really. And I really don't want to take those lower stairs out now because I'm really happy with how they look. I don't think it will really matter, and again it's probably one of those things that you're only really going to notice if you're looking for it, so let's just not tell anybody. But yeah, very frustrating when you do something like that, and it was just my own stupid fault for not measuring that area that I had left from there to there, and I just stupidly assumed that it would be equal, you know. And I really don't know how that happened, because I based this lower tread width on the width of the stair. So I think I've just answered my own question actually. The tread width was the width of the stair, so with the stringer along here and the banister rail, I've obviously made them wider, so that's what I should have taken into consideration and made the stair narrower by that width of those two. So really do have a think about that when you're doing yours. I'm sure you would think more about it than I have, but I won't bring the stairs in yet because they're still drying and I'm just worried they're going to fall apart. So, but I'll show you what I mean obviously when they're in place. But like if you look from there, it looks pretty much equal, doesn't it? It looks as though that banister rail is more or less down the centre, but whereas these stairs were 58 wide, my new stairs are 49 wide, so there's a 9mm difference. But oh, it's a shame, but I really don't want to change these stairs now. Now I've glued it all in, as we'll rip all the paper and everything. It'll be a really big job to change those. So I'm just hoping it won't look too bad. And it's the upstairs, so it's not going to be right next to them obviously, it's going to be up there, so it might not be too noticeable, but we'll see when I put them in. But another one of those lessons for me for really not thinking about things before I just race on and do it. Okay, so in the end I have actually had to glue the staircase together. So I tried doing it with when it was lightly glued, but it just kept falling apart when I was trying to get it into place. So I lined it up on my cutting mat, and if I bring you over the top like that, I'll show you what I mean. So that the ends of each of these sort of stringers or side pieces were level with this line, and so that my side was also level. And that's how I've made sure that it's glued together correctly. And then you can also use the lines then to straighten up the stairs. I then had to put clamps on this to hold it together whilst it dried, because one of my stairs I think is a little bit longer, so it kept sort of trying to pop apart. So I've used clamps so that it's now nice and square. And then when I came to put it into the stairwell, I've gone in from up here, I didn't think I was going to be able to get it in because I couldn't get the angle right. So I was going like this and I was thinking, no, it's not going to work, but it actually does. If I put it in from the top like that and get the bottom bits right up to the skirting board at the back there, and then bring these bits underneath, I can manoeuvre it into place. But that was another panic for a second, because I thought I've spent all that time now remaking them, and now they're not going to fit. So I really didn't know what I was going to do then, but I have managed to get them in. So I need to touch up that paint that I knocked off while I was sawing the stairs shorter. But I just wanted to show you the difference in the widths. And looking through the camera, it doesn't look too bad at all. These are, like I said earlier, about 9mm shorter than these. But I think because it's a sort of switchback stair, it sort of makes sense. It doesn't look too bad. I don't think anybody's going to be looking and saying, well, that looks really odd because they're a lot narrower. And through the camera, it doesn't look too bad. I could have probably gone a little bit wider on these, but I wanted to be on the safe side, and so that I didn't sort of come and then the pins were too tight or anything like that. I really didn't want to have to take all those steps off again and saw anything else off. So I took off more than I knew I would need to, if you know what I mean. So there is a bit of gap between them, but I think that's okay. And overall, I am quite happy with how they look. Again, it's such a small room, I can't get in there and give you the full effect. In fact, I can't really even sort of get my head in there and look. You know, it is one of those sort of just small areas, but if I twist the camera around, can you see there? I think the rope banister going up there like that looks really nice. And I'm all for, you know, scenes where people do have to get in really close and move the head around and have a good look around. So I certainly have to do that in there. But as much as a pain as these were, I am quite happy with that. And I think once these are glued, I can straighten the rail up a little bit, and then I can build that safety rail. And that will just finish that off at the top. And then, like I said earlier, I've got those few pieces of skirting to do. I'll put a strip back there just to neaten that off. There'll be one here in front of the rail. And then I've got to work out what to do here with this piece of coving. And it's going to be really difficult to cut a section out of the coving to shape around that stair. So I might even use a bit of the skirting just along that top bit of wall. I'll have a think about that though, because even as I said it, I thought that might look a bit strange from the front with the thicker, I'm knocking the stairs now, but with the thicker one there and then a thinner one. So I'm not sure what to do up there yet. Another one of those times when I wish we could communicate through the screen and you could tell me what you think. Yeah, I'll have a think about that. We'll see what looks nice. Might look, a piece of skirting might look okay. So I'm really keen now to get these glued into place. So I'll do that and then I can make the safety rail. So just having a think again about this piece to go across here, and I am going to use a piece of the skirting board and see how that looks. So I've cut here a piece of paper which is 12mm, half an inch high, the same as the skirting, and I'm just going to lay it along there like that so I can fold it there, and that's where I'll cut, and then just shape it there along the edge of the stairs, and that should give me a more or less exact cut. Just trying to push that up a bit, get it along that angle properly. And then there's a little sort of cut out bit at the back of the angle which I can just use a little bit of filler on. So I can now cut that, and that will fit nicely then along there. So I've got here my piece of coving and then the skirting board for along the right hand side at the top of the landing, and then I've also cut the pieces for the safety rail. So I've used just 5mm strip for the sides, and I've rounded over the top of each piece, and then I'm using 3mm strip, 1/8 of an inch, for the sort of top and bottom parts. The bottom will be flush along the bottom like that, and then the top piece will just sit below the tops of the rails there, and I've drilled the holes at 9mm, 3/8 of an inch intervals for my pins. So I'm going to glue this together now, and then I'll get all of these pieces painted, So I've glued that top piece of skirting stroke coving into place. I think that looks quite good there. Doesn't look too out of place at all. And then I've also done that back bit of skirting, and that finishes that off really nicely. And then I've got this piece here which I'll attach once I've got the safety rail in place, and that's what I want to work on next. So I've put my pins in, and I actually cut them a little bit shorter this time, although it doesn't really matter because the back of this isn't going to be seen, so there won't be any need to add sort of extra pieces of wood or anything. And again, I'm using my crochet cotton to do this rather than the cord. So I've tied a little knot in one end, but I'm just going to start by putting a little bit of glue around around the base of each pin. Like that. I'll tie that one on there. And then I need to go like that, don't I? And then up, back round. And this thinner thread is a lot easier to sort of manoeuvre as well. And then I can tie that in a knot at the top there. So let me just bang the little pins in. Some of those are going into the cutting mat, but I can just very gently prise it up. I go like that. And then I've actually stuck that down, so I'll use my tweezers to sort of grab that and make it into a knot. And through like that. Like that. And pull that nice and tight under there. And work it so that that bit's coming back down again. Oh, sorry if I was in the way again there. Where's my other scissors? Just trim that off there and trim that off there, and just really gently prise that up. And now that can be glued into place. So that's now glued into place, and I'm just using a couple of spring clamps there to hold this rail of the stairs upright against the rail of this safety rail. Because it's quite a flimsy construction, the banister rail was sort of trying to curl over, so it wasn't quite straight. So that's now made it nice and straight. And I think that looks really nice. And then I've got another one down there, oops, just holding this little bottom rail flat against the floor as I was having to press that down. I've also put the skirting board in place, and I think that looks really nice along there now. And I'm just holding it at one end with a clip as the glue dries. And I'm really pleased with how those stairs have turned out. A little bit of a nightmare, especially with that second set. But I just think it gives it a really nice airy look in there. So we can do some displays at the back there, as I mentioned before. And this sort of safety rail sort of got that, I don't know, ship deck look. That's sort of what I was going for with these rope banisters. I'm really pleased with that. And I hope that's an idea that you really like as well, because I think that's really different and something that you won't see in a lot of dolls' houses. So I'll let that dry off, and then it will be a case of going around doing some little fill-in jobs and painting the edges again of the coving. A little bit of filling to do around the coving up there. looking out from here, you can see a little bit of gap in between the banisters and this new rail, so I'll put a bit of filler and paint in there. A little bit of a filler needed at the back in the corner join there. But I'll do all of these little bits sort of before I start the next episode, and then I can just update you and let you know that that's all been done. So I'm now happy to announce we are at the moving in stage. And in the next episode we are going to start on the furniture and miniatures, which I'm excited about, and I hope you are too. So episode 12 is going to be our moving in episode, and I think, as I mentioned a couple of times in the video, I'm so excited about getting started on the furniture and miniatures, and I thought we'd make a start on that large display unit for the first floor, and we'll fill it with cushions and bedding, and we'll also have a go at the shop counter and all of the miniatures and accessories that come with that. So I hope you're looking forward to that. So until episode 12, take care, and I'll see you then. Bye!